Thank everybody for being with us here today. Obviously, we're focused on Francine that's making its way across the Gulf Coast. Our top priority is safety for our fellow Texans, especially those along the Gulf Coast. There is a danger of life-threatening storm surge in various regions, especially in the upper Texas coastline. Residents in those areas should follow advice from local officials, including possible evacuation orders. Francine is expected to bring heavy rain and a risk of flash flooding along the coast from South Texas all the way up to the Beaumont region. We are prepared for Francine to turn into a hurricane later on today. In the lower Texas coast, power outages are expected and difficult driving conditions may occur mainly across coastal areas today. Texans in those areas need to be careful about low land flooding and roadways along the coast. In the upper Texas coast area, power outages are possible in coastal areas. High tides and potential flooding and high winds could pose threats to both property and to life. Expect heavy rain and flash flooding in coastal regions from Houston to Beaumont, also expanding all the way up into northeast Texas. Be prepared for storm surge of about 1 to 3 feet. Watch out in particular for rip currents. Those are the kinds of things that people typically cannot see, but they can turn deadly very swiftly. As well as one thing that a storm like this can spawn would be potential tornadoes. Now, we all know that the current predicted pathway of the storm continues to edge more toward Louisiana. Even though that's the case, these heavy rains, as well as the tornadoes that could come from the storm, still are a possibility, especially in the north and northeast part of the Texas Gulf Coast. Probable tropical force winds in southeast Texas, especially along the coast, a possibility of winds as much as 30 to 35 miles per hour. Tropical storm Francine is expected to continue to get more predictable as we go through the course of this day. And as I mentioned, it looks like the most likely area of landfall will be in Louisiana. And when it makes landfall, it is expected to be at least a Category 1 hurricane. That said, one thing that we've learned is that the predicted pathway of a storm like this doesn't always turn out to be true. As a result, we need to be prepared for the possibility that conditions could change, that could cause the storm to move a little bit further to the west with increased danger to parts of Texas. As we all remember, Beryl took an unexpected pathway. We must be prepared for Francine to also lead to unpredictable pathways as it gets closer to the shore. Everyone along the Texas coast should remain vigilant and tuned into this until the storm passes their particular area. Along those lines, what people should do is to listen carefully to their local news as well as their local officials who will know best about what is happening in their particular area. The most important thing that we are focused on is protecting the life of every Texan. To do that, again, listen to your local officials and take action to avoid high water on roads and be aware of storm surge. One thing that it seems that we see every time a storm passes through Texas is that some Texans will drive through a roadway unaware of the depth of the water in that region. They get stuck because the water is higher and moving more swiftly than the driver expects. It leads to emergency rescue operations, or at worst, can lead to a possible death. There's a simple slogan that people need to remember, and that is, turn around, don't drown. you don't need to get through that particular roadway if there's heavy or high water in that area. Be safe with your own life, knowing that you can control your own safety by making a decision about where you do and where you do not drive. Power, I know, is a concern of Texans, especially those along the coastline. We expect power providers to be prepared for this storm. Storms like this occur every year on the Texas coastline. There is absolutely no reason for power providers to be fully prepared to meet demands of this storm. We know that even with the greatest preparation, winds can sometimes cause power lines to fall to the ground. When that happens, we fully expect power companies to be prepared in advance to restore those power lines in a matter of hours, not in a matter of days. The Texas response has already been robust. We have pre-stage response resources in advance all the way from Brownsville over to Beaumont. We've coordinated with local officials across the Gulf Coast. We have water rescue teams deployed, as well as water and food deployed to affected areas. The National Guard is on standby with teams ready across the state. With that, I will pass it over to Chief Nimkid with the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor. I think it's important that we remember that the National Hurricane Center forecast 1/3 of the time the eye wall of the storm will make landfall outside of that cone of uncertainty. So while we all want this storm not to impact Texas, Texas has got to be prepared. State agencies are doing that. We've had 24 state agencies here in the Emergency Operations Center. All of their people are out in the field ready to support Texans. We've been in constant contact with our local elected officials. 2 of them have issued voluntary evacuation orders already. We are ready to support them if they ask for more. As the governor mentioned, no matter where this storm makes landfall, the east part of Texas is susceptible to tornadoes and severe rain. And we want to make sure that our boat squads and our search and rescue teams are ready to support, but I need our citizens to be ready to respond to this as well. Have a communication plan with your family. Know where your family is and where they're going to be. We are in constant contact with our locals. Our resources are ready to support those local requests, Governor. There is a high likelihood of trees falling with this wind or cars hitting a power pole. And I urge Texans to make sure that they are ready for minor power outages right now. Make sure they have food and water. Make sure they have a communication plan. And know that we've been in contact with the CEOs of all of the power companies along the coast. They assure us that they have the right saw crews and the right restoration crews ready to respond right now.
We know that high water, as well as other aspects of the storm, can cause problems with regard to travel. Could be trees that fall down across a road. It could be other damages to roadways. And Texans will want information about any serious road conditions that may cause them to take alternative paths. And so we have with us here a representative from the Texas Department of Transportation to tell you more about what they are doing and what they are prepared to do.
Thank you, Governor. Mark Williams with the Texas Department of Transportation. We're already seeing some impacts to some of our state highways in the lower Rio Grande area of South Texas. That area has already experienced some significant rainfall and even some level of storm surge. And so we have some state highways that are impacted with some water over the road. As we always remind everybody, the best source to go to get information on specific roadway conditions is drivetexas.org. That is the website that we continuously maintain in real time to keep Texans posted on the status of roadway conditions throughout the state. As far as the work that the Texas Department of Transportation is doing, our crews are mobilized throughout our coastal districts as well as throughout East Texas, where we could expect even some residual effect should the storm impact Louisiana. We're working on our own preparation, and our message to the public is the same as our message to our own personnel. First and foremost, to be prepared, to work and understand the things that you can do in advance For the public, that may be fueling your car, that may be having a plan for what you might do in the instance that conditions do change and you might be impacted. Secondly is to be aware of conditions, know what is going on, know the conditions of the roadway that you may be going onto. The governor spoke about the importance of not driving onto flooded roadways. Turn around and don't drown. Also be aware of potential for down power lines. Having that awareness is critical, especially if you're going to potentially be being out on the road. And then thirdly, and really most importantly, is to always have safety at the front of mind. And that means to drive to conditions if you do have to get out on the road, and continue to watch for instances of high water or down power lines. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. I will be traveling to Beaumont in a few hours, and will be working with local officials there and provide an update later on today based upon what happens between now and then. We'll be happy to take any questions you all have.
Governor, you and Chief Kidd also, or Beryl was perhaps the earliest arriving hurricane ever. Are we seeing a change in hurricane seasons? Should we be expecting more and perhaps more intense? Or what are you experts seeing?
Well, I mean, here's the reality, and that is Beryl was a Category 1 hurricane. It looks like this will be a Category 1 hurricane. We have many times had more hurricanes than that, more severe than that. And so this is not particularly aberrational.
Governor, seems like we have our hands full right now. Are there any plans to send resources, Texas resources, to California for the wildfires? Have they asked for any help?
So Texas has already sent a lot of resources to California to help them fight wildfires. We sent, it was 25 trucks and 125 firefighters to California. California has thanked us for what we've provided, saying that they have never received something of that magnitude before. So Texas always stands up and helps out those in our neighboring states, including in the wildfires in New Mexico.
I've got a lot of family in Houston, and I think 1 month this summer, my dad was without power for 18 days out of the month. Spent the night in his office, you know. For people along the coast who have been going through, seems like a lot this summer, what would you say to them who may be very anxious to hear that something is coming once again?
Listen, we understand the people of Houston in particular, those who are in the Center Point service area, are, for one, very angry about what happened, and also very anxious when another storm comes through. The status of Center Point today is different than it was at the time that Beryl hit. They have dramatically increased their vegetation removal, which they said was the leading cause of power outages. They have put up an extraordinary number of new, far better weather-resistant poles that will be able to withstand, especially the wind speeds that we are expecting here. And they've taken other actions to make sure they are better prepared. That said, CenterPoint knows that it is under a microscope. CenterPoint knows from me, from state leaders, from their customers, that what happened in Beryl is unacceptable. They better be prepared. This is their time to perform. This is their time to show that they're living up to the promises they have made, and that is that they will be a far more resistant and resilient company as it concerns storms like this, especially with the current pathway of this storm. There's little reason why there should be any power outages or just a few power outages, and there's the full expectation if there are power outages by CenterPoint, they will be corrected and be back on power within hours.
We have time for 2 more questions. Great. Thanks, everyone.